Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the rollout. Yes, we have been gone for, I don't know, a couple weeks. But life happens. We've had Genevieve was on amazing adventures throughout the world and, lots of other things going on. But we are glad to be back. And I am Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome back to the rollout.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of new shows have dropped in the past couple weeks. But we're gonna talk about one that's caused a little bit of controversy. Or I shouldn't say controversy, I should say
It's
drama.
caused a stir.
I mean, obviously, like
We will
Tolkien
say
fans have got their own issues with the Rings of Power, and Game of Thrones fans have their own issues with House of the Dragon, but there's just a lot of unnecessary vitriol coming out towards a little show on Disney Plus called She-Hulk. And we kind of wanted to dive into what's been going on. We've got 6 episodes out now. The internet has been ablaze since the show was announced, essentially.
there are a lot of shows out right now that are just getting undue
Man, if I have one
trash
more person
piled onto it.
if one more person complains to me about the fact that Galadriel never wore battle armor and was a general, I'm going to probably punch them in the face because I personally love General Galadriel. I am okay with this. Um,
Honestly, I mean, what did you want them to do? It is a TV show.
right.
You have to keep audiences interested. And the thing about the Lord of the Rings is like, what is it famous for? All their battles. So if you are going to have a front-facing character that has nothing to do with any fighting, but they're also a female,
Right.
if you're going to go that sort of like traditional Game of Thrones route where the society they live in, women aren't, they're not fighters, they're not like made to be in masculine roles and it's weird, then you choose to have Galadriel as your front facing character.
Right.
There's not a lot you can do with that.
Right.
It
Exactly.
takes two things that we know about Lord of the Rings and Galadriel and the battles. And if you can't mix them together, if she's in some other role, like always dictating what is to be done from a castle or somewhere else, that is boring as
Yeah,
hell.
it's going to be super boring. And
So
yep.
I honestly do not care about liberties taken with adaptations
Nope.
as long as it fits the narrative and fits the story and is good for television or the big screen, whatever you're adapting. And that's why it's called an adaptation
Exactly.
as well. It's not going to be word for word the Silmarillion. It's not going to be word for word whatever book or play or whatever you're adapting, and it shouldn't be. I would argue that it should not be.
Right, because it's a different, and we've talked about this before in previous episodes, that you have different mediums for a reason, and you cannot have the same style of storytelling across
No.
all media. I mean, I think we talked about this with Cowboy Bebop, that the way it was told through animation, the way it was told through a live action, just that didn't work out. But it's like,
Right.
if you're adapting a comic book or a novel, the same thing, people said the same thing with the Harry Potters. It's, oh, all of this stuff was left out from the novel. Well, that's because the novel would have been an 8-hour movie, and some things just don't play well on television,
Right.
and
Let's take the Fellowship of the Rings. First of all, like Tom Bombadil is not in it.
it was
Thank
a
God.
huge part of the book. Yeah.
Thank God. I would have
Oh, you
hated
don't want to see all his humming and singing and all of that?
Lindsay. No. You just wait until we start recording in the same room. It'll be a very different vibe.
But yes, he
No,
was a big part of the
but
books, and they left him out of the
and
movie.
he's fine in the book. I don't have a problem with them doing an aside of him in the book because it also introduces the spiders and it introduces a lot of different things that you're going to see later. But for a movie, that would have just stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yes,
So
exactly.
to circle back to She-Hulk, the adaptation that they did for the show, I personally have been enjoying.
Yeah.
And, it's not the same as the comic books. Of course, it can't be because the MCU has spun off so far from the comics as they are that it has to fit the MCU. It cannot fit the comic book universe, not to a T at least.
Right. But they did keep a lot of, like, I would say, like, the color palette that they're using for the show, because the comics, if anyone's read the comics, they're very bright and vibrant. And
Yeah,
the
the
other thing they've kept,
inspiration.
right,
Yeah.
and the other thing they did keep, which ironically people have been criticizing, is her breaking the fourth wall, a la Daredevil, which is done in the
Yeah.
comics. So, like, that's something they directly pulled from the comics. And of course, that's getting criticized too with how they're doing that. But yeah, they absolutely had to change her backstory to fit with the MCU. You know, obviously her getting in the car accident with her cousin Bruce is not how it was in the comics, but it works for, like you said, the MCU that Kevin Feige has created.
Right. I haven't watched all the episodes. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, but
Okay, I have.
from the episodes that I've seen, I have personally enjoyed it, but I also have been dog-earing. Like if this was a book, I've been dog-earing pages and being like, this is not for everyone.
Yeah, no.
And I feel like a lot of the vitriol, a lot of like the poison that's been, dropped into the waters on the internet is because a lot of people are not getting the fact that like the people that they are marketing to, it's not to men.
No, it's not.
They're not
And it's
like, it's not like,
blatantly not to men.
it's not like they're not invited to enjoy the ride and enjoy the film, but that it's the same with women. Like most, throughout most of film history, unless it's like a rom-com, and even then, most films have been marketed towards men,
Yes.
where women are allowed to join the ride and enjoy the film, but it's not specifically pandering to them.
Right.
And I don't think men have really had that experience, like unless they're part of a minority group, or they're gay. I don't think that they've really had that experience where things are not just, always marketed or made specifically for them. Whereas She-Hulk is clearly made for a female audience to enjoy and to digest. That
and relate to. I mean, from just the first, it's either the first or the second episode where Bruce is like, well, you have to learn to control your anger, because anger, and how long it took him to train to do that. And she's like, I'm a woman. I've literally been doing this my entire life. As I'm catcalled down the street, as I am mansplained at the office. It's like from the very first episode, they are throwing shit out there that they know most female presenting people in this world are going to relate to.
Right. And a lot of the stuff that is presented isn't like, it's more, a lot of it's presented in not this like heavy-handed, like not dark, not in a dark way. I will say,
yeah,
it's not, yeah, it's a tongue-in-cheek way. It's not like in a dark way. And I appreciate that because I think we've had a lot to deal with in real life that is too heavy, and like it's too heavy, it's too dark, it's too real. And I don't really want that as far as being my, MCU escapism little arena. I don't want that in there because, we go to these places, we see movies and we see TV shows to escape, even if they kind of have, one-to-one sort of equivalences of struggles happening in their lives. It's also formatted and presented to us in a way that is safe and it's okay. Whereas to circle back to the fact that this is not it's not advertised, this was not meant for a male audience, this was made for a female audience. I feel like that is where a lot of people have been losing their shit over. And I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding that is probably why they're mad, because they cannot, people who are being argumentative, saying things online, like, I mean, I have had several people that I would call them, acquaintance friends, or, even friends, that they'll post on Facebook or they'll post on Instagram like, but why we have to have Hulk as woman? Like, why do we have to have, you know, a female Hulk? Why do we have to have a female Thor? Why is it so derivative? Why do we have to have, you know, like female representation shoved down our throats in this way? Like, why can't they make their own superheroes?
Right.
And the thing is, it's like these heroes, these people don't exist within an MCU vacuum. It's
No.
not like they were created
No,
before, you
She-Hulk
know.
was created in 1980. The first issue of She-Hulk, the Savage She-Hulk, came out in literally February of 1980, created by Stan Lee. So
Right.
Marvel,
And
the MCU as we know it, did not create this. Same thing with, Jane Foster Thor. That was started in the comics. And to be fair, yes, maybe they're not being creative with the the names they give to these characters, but they are not carbon copies. Like
no, they're their
Jennifer
own
Walters is not
people.
Bruce Banner at all. And they spend 3, 4 episodes literally making fun of the fact that she's called She-Hulk, and they chalk it up to the media being lazy, so they actively address the issues that they're being criticized for by the fanboys.
Right. And it's not, and the fact that we're getting these exact same arguments that we're seeing in the movie, that, I mean, that is a testament to like they got it spot on in the in not the movie. They got it spot on in the show.
Yeah.
Like they called the internet out on what was going to be said, how it would, you know, who's going to be posting these
Yep.
things, you know, is with the even with the news media when, you know, they're making the arguments and stuff against She-Hulk and how it's, you know, disrespectful that she's representing a man who attacked the Hulk at one point.
Right.
And you know, and also I appreciate the fact that the people that are giving these news you know, these news stories are also that like sort of Fox News anchor
Right.
woman as well. Like they're showing like the woman against, you know, feminism sort of thing with the right wing news. And
Right.
I think it's very interesting that they were able to call out so easily what was going to be the backlash
Yep.
to this show.
It's a very self-aware
And
show.
it is kind of embarrassing, silly
Well, it's the
that
thing is
people,
it's so predictable, because people were like, I don't know which episode it was, when I think it was episode 3, when they literally show the Twitter feed. People were like, how did they do this?
yeah,
How did they know what was going to be said? And it's like, because it's literally that predictable. We know exactly what's going to be
it's
said because it's been said for the past 10 years.
well, it's all the same talking points. That's the thing, is that the rhetoric is always the same. It's just, you know, it's just packaged differently when it is a different kind of show or whatever. I mean, you look at the Rings of Power, it's always like, oh, these SJWs, they gotta ruin everything by, you know, putting some minorities in here. And without even bothering to look up historical precedent and seeing that like there were brown people in
Yes.
Europe. Like, of course there were. If the Silk Road
Well, the Silk
existed,
Road, the British Empire,
the British Empire, I mean, for decades and centuries, you people have been mixing with other cultures. Like, yes, a lot of the times, you know, European countries are very homogenous back in the day, but that doesn't mean that these people didn't pass through the cities and the countries. It didn't mean that these people didn't live there in some capacity. I mean, how else are you going to get things like the Spanish Inquisition?
yes. Right, right,
There, how are you going to get things like the Spanish Inquisition if Jewish people, if, you know, Muslim people, if they didn't exist
right.
in these countries at this time? People are not thinking because they don't want to think, because
Right.
they
They want to
just,
think that they are unique and special. They are a monolith, and that anything outside of their very narrow view of what, and not, I will also remind people what a fantasy world is. is being
Yeah.
challenged. And again, we're looking at Tolkien. You know, he was writing during World War II, so he was writing, yeah, from a Eurocentric viewpoint. But to your point, he also lived in Britain, which had Indian people, and all the people from the British Isles and all the colonies
Right.
were in the UK from way before, you know, centuries before. But again, we're talking about a fantasy world.
And to
And
imagine minorities were not fighting in these wars as well
which
is
they absolutely were.
absolutely
If
ridiculous.
anyone is in the UK, I recently got back from a trip to the UK and I went to the Imperial War College. I'm sorry, I went to the Imperial War Museum, and they had a fantastic entire floor devoted to World War II. And half of that floor was devoted to all the countries that were fighting in the war that nobody talks about. And it was like all these Pacific Island countries and, you know, parts of Africa and India. And you're just like, these people have literally been written out of history. And I thank the British, you know, Imperial War Museum for having this fantastic display, because I was like, I didn't know a lot of this, and I feel like I am fairly well educated when it comes to these types of things. But people just they live in their little worlds and they don't want anything challenging that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not about what is true.
No.
And that's the thing, is it never was about what is true. It's always about what they want things to be. It's
Right.
about living out and making that fantasy of, an ethnic monolith real. And it's just never going to be that way.
Yep.
Right. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But She-Hulk is very much the same. It's like, even if it was a bad show,
Yep.
let's say it was a bad show. Let's say that it was like a CW style,
Like the
just a
Flash
trash
or whatever.
pile. It's still like, I don't see so much hate and, dogpiling onto CW shows, but not like, Arrow, which I can't stand. I can't
Right.
stand
Well, to be fair, Supergirl did get a lot of shit for being way too woke and throwing woke people
right.
in the face.
I
Which,
mean,
having
Supergirl
watched it,
though
I
is
can,
also
right.
I'm talking about like male
Yeah.
face, like forward facing characters.
Right.
Like I can't watch any of those CW shows because they really just rock my world as far as being too unbelievable, too campy.
There's,
I
yeah.
did not mind Gotham for a bit, and then it just like
Yeah.
spun far out of control really, really fast.
Yeah.
But you do not see people going online and giving it so much hate. I literally posted today in my stories of all places, not even on my timeline, in my stories, the thing that just is supposed to scroll by and be a little like nothing. I posted a picture of me cosplaying She-Hulk. And this was a couple of years ago that I did this. And I was like, guess what I'm watching? The first comment I get is from a man that I have not talked to in about 5 years. And the only thing he deigns important enough to say to me after 5 years of radio silence is, why, LOL, it sucks. And I'm like,
Thanks.
how are you?
Right. Exactly.
Insert name of person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I'm
great to hear
doing
from you.
fine. It's been 5 years and there's been a lot of changes in my life, but the most important being your opinion on She-Hulk.
Yes. Which you
Let's
probably haven't
discuss.
even watched, I would bet.
Well, it doesn't even matter if he watched it, if he liked it, if he disliked it, it doesn't matter. The fact that I have some person coming out of the woodworks who I used to be close to just to shit on a TV show that has a female superhero headlining it. And I mean, like, it's not the greatest show in the world, but I'm enjoying it. It's
Yeah.
a fun ride. It's not like above criticism.
No, not at all. But not the
Nothing
criticism that it's
is.
getting, right?
Right. It's not above criticism, but like you said, there's critique, and then there is just dogpiling and mobbing and hate mongering. And there is invalid criticism And this show is getting so much of it that the one time that I mention it in any online space in the tiniest little bit, it immediately
Gets
gets
that
just
type of reaction.
decimated.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really sad that, you know, it's I shouldn't be surprised because it's like, we are living in a society where unfortunately the past 5, 6 years have seen the emboldening of what I'm going to call these minority opinions that, white cis men are superior to everybody else. But unfortunately, we are living in a society where that mentality has been amplified and supported. And so we're continuing to deal with this, even though we like to think that we've had a lot of progress from, with representation in the media. But this just shows like the haters are still going to be there. And I'm hoping that if nothing else, this will just encourage companies like Disney and, some of the other big studios to just be like, fuck it. You know what? We don't care about the online haters. We're still going to make this film.
Right.
We're
And
still
give
going
us
to make this
gays in the
show
movies
because
too.
I think that's the route
Just
She-Hulk
like
took.
throw caution to the wind. Give us the gays. Give us the women. I give us the NBs, give us the trans characters because people like She-Hulk is so unoffensive that
Right.
you are going to be damned no matter how light you tread. So you
Yes.
might as well just fling open doors and admit that the Luca characters are gay. It's
It's yeah.
ridiculous. If this aired, here's the thing. If this show aired in, I want to say like 2010, you would have a lot of back when everybody's like like gender and sex and all of that, like it's all fixed, everything's fixed, feminism won, we did all this great stuff, the pre-Trump era,
Right.
where I mean you had all these issues still, you had everything that was like boiling and simmering and just waiting to rear its head. But it was like the golden age in the Clinton era when you had a good economy.
Yeah.
That was just boiling and simmering and waiting to go getting south. But back if this was back in like 2010, you would get a lot of people being like, what is this like commentary on like men and women and the woke stuff? Like, I don't really understand. You'd get a lot of people that would like on all sides, I think, would just kind of be like, this is a little left field. But it's a different world now, guys. We went through Trump, we went through Trump's era. We have all of the fallout from that,
Yep.
especially when it comes to the Supreme Court, especially when it comes to policing and being aware of these alt-right groups and these and our family members, some of them falling down alt-right pipelines, not even of their own doing, just because the
That's the
internet
communities
and,
they live
and
in.
algorithms
Yeah.
decided like, oh, this is, you watch one video, all right, what's one more, what's one more, what's one
Right.
more.
The YouTube
And
rabbit holes
it's
and
easy for the elderly also to be pushed down these alt-right pipelines because they exist in a vacuum. They
yeah.
are only on like Facebook or Instagram, or like they're only on one social media website. They're not on a lot of these platforms. And so they get exposed to the same of everything. So they think that that's the truth.
Right.
But nowadays it's different. We need these shows, we need
Yeah.
these messages to remind people that this is how things are. These are the struggles that we're going through daily. And if we don't fight, if we just, kick our feet up and sit back like we did in the early 2000s and be like, racism solved,
Yeah.
sexism is solved,
Yeah.
then we are going to end up in a worse place than we are currently now, and that's fucking scary.
Yeah. I think another example of that was something that happened this week. So yesterday saw the premiere, or I'm sorry, Thursday. I guess last Thursday saw the premiere of Law and Order SVU, and Law and Order Organized Crime, and there was a little Twitter conference. There was a little Twitter controversy going on, and that one of the people were commenting about how the Law and Orders, despite, and I will argue SVU has done a lot to increase the dialogue surrounding sexual assault in this country. But there was a lot of commentary surrounding the fact that Law and Order has sanitized and glorified how the police are, and
Yes.
the fact that they paint a picture of especially the special victims unit being so gung-ho about protecting protecting the rights of the victims and everything. And you had all these people posting about how like the actual New York police are not like this at all. People have this image because of Law and Order that they're this amazing force, and people were like, I wish Olivia Benson actually existed. And you had one of the former stars who played one of the ADAs back on the Law and Order years and years and years ago, coming out to their defense and was like, man, if I had known all of this when I was on the show, I might have reconsidered. So it's one, it's a testament to how powerful media is, but two, it's also a testament to the fact that like, yeah, we need stuff out there that's representing how the world is right now.
Law and Order exists in a very interesting space because it is a long running show.
Right.
It's been on for a very long time, but its creator, the person who created it, also really revered cop shows growing up.
Which, back in the
And
his
which
age,
is fine. I
50s,
mean, like,
yeah.
think about all the cop shows that there were on TV when you're growing up. I mean, there
Yeah.
was Nash Bridges, there was Hawaii Five O. There, I mean, like,
Well, and going back even earlier, you had Dragnet and things like that on there.
yeah, I think that was one of the things that I think that was the one that was actually cited as one of this dude's favorite
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, it was a big
But
one.
at the same time, like, I think the YouTuber Solari did a video on Law and Order specifically. I'll have to look it up. It might not be Solari, but it is very interesting to have I'll find the video and we can link it down below. But it is very interesting to listen to that because it is specifically on Law and Order and the glorification of the police and how that, especially in in the special victims unit, these cases rarely get solved.
Mm-mm.
These cases rarely even come to light. Like, a lot of people, they just never get reported. A lot of the times, these cases will, like, rape kits will just sit on
For decades.
for decades. They'll just sit on a shelf, and and there's just nothing done about them. They have a backlog, miles and miles long, and that the majority of cases never
Yep.
get solved.
Yep.
And whereas in Law and Order, the case gets solved. I mean, it's procedural, so the
Yeah,
cases
exactly.
are going to get solved
By the end of the
at the
episode.
end of every episode. Every case gets solved, and it just gives it gives a false narrative of what actually goes on.
Yep.
And it gives a false narrative because, I mean, how is Law and Order SVU going to be able to afford renting all of these like cop uniforms and cop cars, and being able to borrow, because that's essentially what they do. It's like what the Transformers movies.
Yeah, they work with the military for all of that.
They have contracts with the military. They have agreements with the military to use their shit in their movies for free, basically, because it's advertisement. Right. So SVU has the same sort of deal with the police. And so they are not going to show, or even when the BLM movement, was, really, when we were in the thick of it, they're not going to say a word edgewise that is negative about.
I will say, I think it was 2 years ago, the season SVU specifically really actually finally addressed the issue of racial profiling and racism within the department. And I do give them credit for making that part of the story arc. Finn had a lot to say about what it was like to be a Black police officer. They ended up firing the police chief who was Black. But then there was the backlash that they fired two of their most prominent characters of color. They fired their Muslim American actress who was playing one of the cops, and they fired the guy who was playing the police chief who was a Black man. And so it's like, okay, you did this whole season story arc about addressing racism within in the NYPD, and then the show fires two prominent people of color, and there was a big backlash over that. So it's like,
that's kind of the hard thing, because you know that they probably hired these people because they're like, we need representation.
right.
And then it's like, well, we can't fire the white ones, can we? Or rather, the people of representation, are holding positions of, the police chief, whatever. And they're like, oh, we need to fire the police chief, but fuck, we casted him as a Black guy. God damn it, that's not reflective of reality.
Yep.
Okay, but we gotta do it. We gotta we gotta take a stand either way, like they're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
And so I'm thinking about that writer's room of like them doing 3D chess.
How do we write them off the show and not appear racist? And again, there's obviously some great people who work on the show. I watch.
I'm not questioning the integrity of the people that work on the show.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this is how these things, I'm just saying this is how these like false narratives and these, how glorifying the police and glorifying these systems that are not perfect, they're actually very imperfect, can be harmful to the world at large, because now you've got a lot of, BLM got a huge amount of backlash, defund the police movements, huge amount of backlash. You have a lot of things that are happening, a lot of discussions that are being sidelined and, not swept under the rug and not even being had, because of the fact that people are looking at these TV shows, they're looking at these movies that are glorifying the police, that are glorifying the people that are supposed to protect us, and not questioning what they're seeing on TV, what they're seeing in the movies, not questioning that isn't reality.
Yeah.
When it very much is not.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know what, I wish, circling it back to She-Hulk here to close it out, is like, I really do wish a lot of these, people who are complaining about the show could watch it through our lens and, understand that when Jennifer Walters says she's had to control her fear and anger her entire life because she is a woman, I wish that they would take that to heart and realize that, like, as women in America, not just America, but that's the world in which Genevieve and I live, we know what it's like to walk down the street at night and feel like we need to cross the street, or to train extensively in martial arts because of the possibility that someone bigger than us could attack us, or to be dealing with, passive aggressive misogyny or even overt misogyny, and that we can't just yell at people every time they piss us off because,
either,
because
control your paycheck,
it's like,
or
I wish that people
the possibility for a raise, or
right. I mean, the show is shining a light on, I'm going to call it ignorance, on the ignorance that exists in our society, that there can be no other viewpoint besides the cloistered white cis male viewpoint. And I would say maybe the conservative white cis male viewpoint. And that women are still 55% of the population. And it's really refreshing to have a show that is actively addressing the things we deal with on a daily basis as women, the things that we deal with as fans of female characters, as fans of geek culture, and that they're really just throwing it out there. And maybe someone will, think twice and be like, oh yeah, I guess I do kind of come across as an asshole. Maybe I should check my privilege, but we'll see.
Yeah, I am hoping that the anger that people are responding to this with immediately, that immediate like anger response, is then later met with introspection and some thought, some critical thinking. And and as I'm saying this, I'm like, and then pigs will fly.
Yep,
But
exactly.
I really do want to believe in the best of people.
Yeah,
You know, I really do want to believe that people, even if this angers them, that they will start thinking about it later down the road and be like, okay, I see what it's trying to say. And like, yeah, it's kind of hard to admit that some of this might be true, but maybe it is true. And then maybe
yeah,
they'll either have a conversation with, with a woman, or they'll just, you know,
yeah,
they'll try and educate themselves, or they'll just, think twice before,
yeah,
you know, doing whatever.
yeah,
And I do hope that this is just the beginning, like, I'm not saying this show is perfect,
yeah,
but it's a good start. And I do applaud it for making its audience, its target audience, female.
yeah.
That I do appreciate.
Yeah. And I'm hoping, like you said, I'm hoping we get more like this. Obviously we have the Marvels to look forward to in the movie theaters, but again, who knows what's going to happen with that. Debatable if we're going to get a season 2 of Miss Marvel, despite the fact that now we're getting a season 2 of Moon Knight and we're getting all these other shows. But I'm really hoping that this is indicative of the fact that Disney, you got more money than most countries. You
Yeah.
can afford to throw, disenfranchised groups a bone here and then. You can give us our She-Hulks and then give us 15 Captain Americas, so it's like, just give us a
It's
break.
not a big ask.
It's not
It
a huge
really
ask.
isn't.
It's not a huge ask.
Yeah.
And there's other things that we can go in, which is for another show, but this extends past Marvel. And again, I credit Amazon for for having the courage to give us General Galadriel. And
Yeah.
I credit the House of the Dragons for changing the tone of the show to make it
Oh
more
my,
about the
thank you.
ineptitude of the men than the women. But and
I
yeah,
I
that's for
was
another
just
show. So Marvel, give us more, of these
I was just
shows.
honestly surprised that we are 5 episodes in and we did not get like some like crazy ass violent SA against a woman. I'm like,
We haven't. I mean, we had
whoa.
like borderline incest, but again, that's Game of Thrones.
It's Game of Thrones, and you
Targaryens
have
have been
like,
wedding their brothers and sisters for centuries. So
right, right. Like you don't it's not, I'm just saying we did not go down a Sansa Stark road, and I'm just
no, we did not. And
thanking
we do not
God. I'm
have
just
a
like,
Keith
I
Joffrey
know it's only
character.
5 episodes in, but like that is still a record for Game of Thrones.
It is. And hopefully they learned from the original that like as
So many people hated
so many
that
people hated
though.
it. And well,
So
again,
many people.
the worst example, and again, we're getting off track here, but the worst example obviously was Khal Drogo raping Daenerys. Like that literally did not happen in the book. I'm literally rereading the books right now, and the
No,
whole
yeah,
season is
no, it
like,
doesn't happen in the book, and it really
I mean,
wasn't
granted, she's
needed.
14. We can have but again, back in the day, if we're going to talk about real world history, yes, women were married off at 13 and 14. So yes, it's
Right.
gross
See,
that
like,
it's huge age difference, but in the book, it's literally like he asks her, "Is it okay? Is it okay? It is okay." And despite the creepiness of the age difference, there was no grotesque rape scene like we saw in the TV show.
that's the thing, is that it does hit differently, you know?
I know, because
Like
I'm reading the
the
scene and I'm like,
underage
oh,
thing, because when you enter into that world and you understand the rules, you're like, okay, I get it. Like there's Targaryen incest and all this
yeah,
crazy
marriages of
shit.
convenience,
Marriages of convenience, I get that crazy shit as well. But then they just like writing in this stuff for, I don't
or
know, the sake
just
of
glorifying it. Yeah, no
that,
purpose.
or like the sake of like character growth. It's like, guys, this is not how you write character growth for
No,
women.
and the fact that it got so bad that after a couple seasons aired, Amelia Clark had to update her contract to say she was no longer doing nudity because she felt so pressured into it because she was young, she was inexperienced when she first did the show, she felt like she had to. And it finally got so out of control, she was like, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to delineate their boundaries.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Anyway, give
that was
She-Hulk a
our
chance if you haven't.
ramble
Yes.
on She-Hulk and so much else besides. So we will see you next week, maybe. It
Hopefully.
depends on our schedules.
Working in the entertainment industry. It's always fun.
Oh, I know.
Yes.
And also moving.
And moving and conventions and all these things. So, yes, of course, let us know your comments. Well, let us know your
Your
thoughts in the
thoughts.
comments. And I say that, I take that with a grain of salt because fanboys, please give the show a chance. Look at it from our perspective. You've had so many, amazing masculine superheroes for decades. Just give us this one.
Look, I believe in you. If you haven't tried seafood yet, give it a go.
No.
And
That's
that's
the
all I'm
moral of
going to
the
say
story.
about that. Okay.
All right, all right. We are the rollout,
And
and
we're
we
going
will
to
geek with
speak
you
with you
next.
next week. That was great.
That was
Okay.
good.
Bye, guys.
Bye.